The Montana dusk bled gold across the horizon as Eli Carson stood on his porch, the wooden boards creaking beneath his boots. The ranch stretched endlessly before him, miles of silence broken only by the restless sigh of the wind. His coffee had long gone cold, but he held it anyway, as if warmth could seep from memory. 5 winters had passed since his wife's laughter vanished from this land, yet the ache lingered like dust that never settled. He heard the faint jingle of his daughter's bicycle before she appeared, breathless and radiant, her braids wild from the ride. Sophie carried that same stubborn light her mother once had. "Daddy," she gasped, waving a bright pink flyer. "There's gonna be a Valentine dance. Miss Hale says it's for charity." Eli managed to grin, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "A dance, huh? Sounds like a fine way for folks to trip over each other." She giggled. "Miss Hale doesn't have a date. You should ask her." He choked on a laugh, half amusement, half disbelief. "Your teacher. She's young enough to still believe in fairy tales. She said you were funny," Sophie said, proud. "And she likes horses." That caught him off guard. He'd seen the new school teacher once, kind eyes, quiet voice, a gentleness that unsettled him. But that was a world he no longer walked in. "Sweetheart," he began, "your old man's not much for courtin'." Sophie's face fell, small and hopeful all at once. "Just one day, Daddy." When she went to bed, her words stayed behind, echoing through the lonely house. Later, in the mirror's reflection, Eli adjusted his weathered hat, the corner of his mouth curving into something almost like courage. "Just one day," he murmured. "What harm could that do?" Lantern light shimmered through the town hall windows, scattering gold across the polished floorboards. Eli stepped inside, tugging at the collar of a shirt that hadn't seen daylight in years. Laughter and fiddle music swirled through the air, wrapping around him like a language he'd almost forgotten. People turned as he entered, some with surprise, others with sly grins. The lonely rancher, back among the living. Across the room, Clara Hale stood by the punch bowl, her blue dress simple yet striking against the warm glow. When she noticed him, a startled smile touched her lips, uncertain but genuine. He tipped his hat, heart thudding harder than it had on any cattle drive. Their first dance was awkward, her laughter breaking through his stiffness. "You're counting out loud," she teased softly. He grinned, low and rough. "Only way I keep from stepping on your toes." The crowd faded as rhythm took hold, 2 weary souls circling each other in cautious rediscovery. Beneath the lights, Eli felt time loosen its grip. When the song ended, he fetched her lemonade, proud of how easily she smiled now. But the moment shattered with a booming voice from the sheriff near the stage. "Well, I'll be. Didn't know Miss Hale was dancing with her students, Daddy." A murmur rippled through the hall. Eli froze, heat rising under his collar. Clara's color drained. The laughter stung sharper than a whip crack. He managed a stiff smile, muttering, "Reckon I didn't know I was breaking school rules tonight." She tried to meet his gaze, words trembling on her tongue, but he was already setting his hat back on his head. "Good night, Miss Hale." As he left, the music resumed, but neither of them could hear it. Outside, the prairie wind carried only the sound of regret. Dawn broke through a shroud of rain, the fields glistening like tarnished silver. Eli rode hard toward the canyon, his jaw set against the storm's bite. Overnight, the downpour had driven part of his herd into the swollen ravine. Each hoofbeat echoed his turmoil, anger at himself for caring, shame for leaving the dance, and something deeper he couldn't name. The wind howled through the cottonwoods, scolding him like a ghost that refused to rest. When he reached the ridge, a flash of color caught his eye. Clara, soaked to the bone, guiding her mare down the muddy trail. "Heard your cattle were trapped," she shouted through the rain. "Couldn't let Sophie worry herself sick." Her voice shook, but her gaze was steady. He wanted to argue, to send her home, yet words drowned beneath thunder. Together they rode into the chaos. They worked without pause, ropes flying, mud sucking at their boots, every breath a battle. Clara's hair clung to her cheeks, her hands raw, yet she didn't falter. When a calf slipped toward the ravine, she lunged without hesitation. Eli caught her wrist just as the ground crumbled beneath them, pulling her back with a roar that tore from his chest like prayer. Their eyes met, terror, relief, and something fierce that refused to be named. By dusk, the rain eased. Inside the barn, steam rose from their clothes as they sat beside the flickering lantern. Clara smiled faintly. "You didn't have to come after me," he answered quietly. "Didn't have to dance either, but I'm glad I did." Her laughter trembled through the silence, fragile yet true. Outside, the storm passed, leaving only the scent of rain and the soft, unspoken promise of another sunrise neither of them would face alone.